Hello, and thank you for joining me for another edition of AB Talks. I'm delighted to be joined today by members from across the industries in France to have a conversation on sustainability, renewables, and the importance of green investment. I'm joined today by Philippe, the CEO of Provence Promotion, the economic development agency for Provence, Stephanie Marco, the Deputy Managing Director of EDF Middle East, Matthew Viz, the Head of International Strategy at Provence Promotion, and Nicolas Cambazard, the Territory Expert for Decarbonization in Provence. Everyone, thank you for joining me. I hope we have a good conversation today. To start with, just a little background on Provence. It's home to the largest hydrocarbons port in the Mediterranean and is at the heart of Southern Europe's energy transition. Currently, the region is home to a bevy of ongoing investment projects in low-carbon energy and industrial ecology. So I think an interesting place to start discussing would be turning to what can we learn from Provence as a place for green investment and decarbonization. Philippe, I think maybe we should start with you on that one.
Yeah. Presently, the French government decided to establish a new scheme for redeveloping France as a country based on metro areas. And the two main metro areas to be supported by the French government are the Greater Paris metro area and the ex-Marseille Provence greater area. For Marseille and Provence, the main target is to support a French cooperation with countries in the Mediterranean and the Gulf region, and also with African countries. This is why we are there today in Dubai, is to present this opportunity launched by the French President Macron, to welcome new investors in this green development of the southern part of Marseille, of France, sorry.
So, I mean, in the Middle East in particular, we have huge investments in the renewable space. The UAE itself has a targeted goal of net zero by 2050. Given the ongoing green investments in Provence, would you say there are any lessons that can be learned that the Gulf region can take home in its own investment space?
We are sharing two main sectors to welcome green investment. One sector is the smart cities development, and the other one is the green transport development. Why the smart cities and why the green transport? First of all, the Mediterranean, like the Gulf region, is a region with a lot of urbanization along a sea which is a kind of a closed sea, you know. So we need also to prevent them from the climate change. We will be the first region with a lot of change with the climate change. That's why we are focusing today to welcome new investments in urbanization, but in smart urbanization, like in Dubai presently. For transportation, we are sharing the maritime transportation. Marseille is the first port of France and first port of the Mediterranean. Like Dubai is the most active port of the Gulf region. And we are, of course, involved in decarbonization of this maritime transportation. In addition to maritime transportation, we are also focusing, like the Gulf countries, in changing the air transportation. Today, the air transportation is to change in a new model. And thanks to our expertise, especially with Airbus Group, we are presenting innovations for this big change in air transportation also. We are wanting to share this innovation with the Gulf countries. Airbus was part of the last Dubai Air Show last week. It was in the same direction.
We'll come down to more specific sectors in a moment, but I think it might be interesting if we stick with this conversation on decarbonization for a moment. Nicolas, I think you're the expert in this area for the Provence region. What kind of decarbonization efforts are going on in the region, and how do you think they could be applied to the Gulf?
If you take the Provence, we've got a lot of diversification of the industry sector, especially on energy. On the west side of the metropolis, you will find 4 industrial platforms that are linked together and that are working on the decarbonization aspects since some change that happen on the sectors with one leader, which is called Total, that decided to transform its refinery into a bio-refinery just recently. And these players support all other players of the territory to reflect about how they can save efforts to have a concrete concrete goals into decarbonization altogether. And in order to say a number, 2.2 billion euros are spent nowadays in order to decarbonize the activity of industrial player in Provence.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to add on decarbonization?
What is really interesting that Dubai and Marseille are sharing a big urban development, but also a big industrial development. Is the same position, that's to say we have a big concentration of heavy industries very near to the city itself. That's why it's really important for us to decarbonize these heavy industries. For instance, ArcelorMittal will run the first metal plant with hydrogen. No longer coal, but hydrogen. This is quite important for the quality of air of the inhabitants of the urban region of Marseille. I think it will be the same here. We are sharing the same goal of keeping our industry. We are not against the industry. We want to keep the industry, to authorize the industry to develop itself with more decarbonated energies.
Are investing a lot in Marseille to decarbonize. I think they will do the same here in the Gulf countries, and we can share experiences about it.
And maybe I can continue to illustrate with one process we have just inaugurated with our partner Interxion. So Interxion is one of the world leader of data center. Thanks to the investments of Interxion in Marseille, Marseille is now among the top 10 of the internet hub worldwide. So that's a good thing to note. And EDF, with our subsidiary Dalkia, we have developed a solution to cool, the servers, because when you have data center, you have to know that around 40% of the energy consumption is linked to the production of cooling for the servers. So we have developed a solution, net zero, because we are using an old river that was used previously for an old industry in Gardanne, for example, in the suburbs of Marseille. And with this water, this fresh water, we can refresh and cool all the servers and of the data centers. And at the end, we can absorb 100% of the needs of the cooling for these servers. And that's a good example of decarbonization, because at the end, they don't use anymore electricity or generation from other topics to generate the cooling.
Thank you, Stephanie. You kind of stole my thunder a little bit there, because I was about to talk about technology being a real driver of sustainability. I think we can all agree that for sustainability goals to be reached, innovation and development of technology is particularly important. Now, something you just mentioned there that I think we should touch on is the region being one of the internet hubs in the world. So my first question is, how did you get there? And how did that transformation take place? I don't know, Philippe, if maybe you wanted to take...
I can answer, Philippe, if you don't mind. So yeah, how did we get there? So first, it's about the geography, the subsea cables that are connecting Europe with Asia, Africa, America are arriving in Marseille. Why in Marseille? It's because Marseille is very well interconnected with the European hubs, Frankfurt, London, Amsterdam, so the big data hubs in Europe. So being at the junction of the European hubs and the subsea cables connecting overseas, Marseille is the ideal place to develop data centers. So today, as you said, we're in the top 10, very soon the top 5. There are more data centers to come. And I think in terms of decarbonization, it's not neutral, because we call it tech for green. I mean, to decarbonize, we'll also use the tech innovation to accelerate this decarbonization. So it's also a very important part. And here we are directly connected, for example, with the UAE. There is this Simiwi 4 cable that connects us directly with the Emirates, with the UAE. And this is definitely an asset to develop also a digital cooperation with the Gulf countries.
So, I mean, essentially what you're telling me is that you're already both connected by an unbreakable cable.
Correct.
Let's speak specifically about one industry in particular, which I know we've already touched on briefly, transport and decarbonisation of the transport industry. Aerospace in particular, the aerospace industry globally is responsible for significant carbon emissions that are released into the atmosphere. And I know the industry is making significant strides towards a more sustainable future. Provence itself has a history of aerospace development. It's home to Airbus helicopters, and I believe the inventor of the first seaplane was from Provence as well. So firstly, I think the question we should ask is, what are the challenges facing the aerospace industry, and what kind of solutions have we seen coming from out of the region? Nicholas?
Yes, with pleasure. There's a lot of challenges around aerospace, especially in Provence. As I said before, Provence is very diversified in terms of industry. We not only have one sector of excellence, but we have multiple sectors of excellence, like, for example, aerospace, energy, eco-industry also. And this is the strength of the territory. We have, for example, the seaplane, as you just said, that has been invented in Provence. And what is interesting regarding this invention is that Henri Fabre, that invented the seaplane, used to bring together many activity sectors in order to develop the prototype. Aerospace, maritime industry, energy, microelectronics, electronics. And so in Provence, it was a perfect place in order to combine this technology and to make this innovation. Nowadays, there are still innovations that is being made by Airbus helicopters, of course. They have their headquarters, worldwide headquarters there. They have also their largest industrial site. But they are not alone there. We've got Safran. Safran, for example, has its worldwide open air site in order to test the engine of tomorrow, in order to consume less fuel. And regarding fuel, we've got also Total that has built is one of the largest biorefinery in Europe. And all this combination, all this knowledge leads to just recently, last week, Airbus helicopters, thanks to the engine of Safran and thanks to the fuel of Total, just make the first flight in the world with 100% of sustainable aviation fuel. So it's a world premiere. It has been made in Provence with components from Provence. So it's very interesting. We have innovations that could be made there also with a bunch of industrial players. And in order to support this innovation, we need infrastructure. And we need also infrastructure that shares the same ambition, shares the same vision. In Provence, we've got the airport of Aix-Marseille Provence, which is the airport of Marseille. And in this airport, there's a lot of investments that are being done in order to be the first airport in France that's going to be carbonless.
Carbon neutral, yeah.
Neutral carbon, thanks.
You're welcome.
Carbonless. That's going to be
Less carbon neutral.
that's going to be carbon neutral. In this investment, there's a lot of development that is going to happen around the airport. And for the example, how can Gulf players can help us regarding that? We have a lot to do regarding general aviation. Because in Marseille, there's a big plan in order to develop general aviation there. I know that the Gulf experts have a lot to do on that. And I think that it could be a good deal to share together, once on the general aviation, one regarding the reduction of emission that is being made by motor engine and to reduce aerospace
Footprint, carbon footprint.
The carbon footprint. Thank you, Mathieu.
Maybe if I may intervene shortly, because you were talking about diversification.
Yeah.
And here I think, so this is really something specific to the Provence area, because we have lots of different industries, but they're all if I may say so, talking to each other, meaning this is the right place to do cross-fertilization. And I think this is something that could be of interest for investors from the Gulf countries, this cross-fertilization. Also, you can add this open innovation spirit. We have all those big players like EDF that have this way of working with the academia, with startups. It's something very natural in Provence. So you will be working on prototypes, demonstrators from the beginning with the academia, with also startups and several players. So I think this is something that could be of interest for investors.
Thank you. And with that, I think that's a very great point to end on. I appreciate all of you taking the time to speak with me, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.